Howdy, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me for this incredible LinkedIn Live series. We've been doing this for a while, but this one is different. We actually have live people here. They're not that big, and we have a group of people in the audience, and we have several cameras. So this is going to be a lot of fun. My name is James Page. I am the Global Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the Nature Conservancy, and we are live here at Martha's Vineyard. And we are being hosted by the incredible community radio station WMVY. So thank you for WMVY for having us in this beautiful facility. And I wish you all were here on the island because it's incredible. I'm going to ask my guests to introduce themselves, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
You want to go first?
You were like, hey.
I'm Dr.
Yes, she is.
I'm Dr. Jocelyn Imani. I am the National Director of Black History and Culture at the Trust for Public Land. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and really glad to be back on the island.
Beautiful. I am Bridget Coulter Cheadle, and I am founder and CEO of Blackbird Collective. I'm here from California. Very happy to be here in beautiful Martha's Vineyard with incredible weather, with incredible people, and really a gorgeous audience that y'all really should
Really
see.
good. They look really good, y'all. So we have a whole list of questions here, but I'm just going to start off by ignoring the questions and just asking.
After all that, we were like, we forgot what the questions were,
No, but
and then we're like, let's study.
No,
And
it's
now-
good.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question that I'm going to start off is, we talked about being here at Martha's Vineyard. What brings Blackbird House? What brings TPO here? And why is this a special place?
I mean, I came here 20 plus years ago when my kids were little, and there was something magical here. And you know, the history and the Underground Railroad, and there's so much. One of the first places that African American and Black people could have vacations. There's so much that was going on, and it was hyped to us by really cool people. And coming back, and there was a break. Coming back 7 years ago, it was community. And it was this idea of what I hadn't seen was Black leisure. And I was like, what is this? So the next year came back and was like, Black leisure again, where you're just chilling, where you're seeing people, having community, having a cookout, playing games, going to talks and panels. There's a lot of work stuff that happens here. But that kept ruminating in my mind, and 3 years ago we did our first Blackbird Leisure to sort of honor that, and this will be our third year doing it. So I brought that back because I wanted to take ourselves as a storytelling studio and share that story in a meaningful way.
Yeah. And I came for work, but it was in the context of honoring this land. I would be remiss if I did not name the Wampanoag people, for whom Nowepe is their home, and we are all visitors in their home. And I have been just so honored to struck. It is the Black leisure. It is also this connection, this incredible community that folks from across this country are gathered, that not only are we resting, but we're also like, it's rest and memory and connection and strategy for what we're about to do next. Yeah. And that is why I came last year. God willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll be here next year for many years to come.
One of the things I want people to understand is what makes this place so special. You talked about Black leisure. I was talking to someone the other day that had kids, and you walk down Circuit, and you or the beach, and you see something you don't see on mainland at all. There's a freedom, there's a safety, there's a community that this place brings. And a huge part of it is so much of nature, because it is outdoors. It is the beach, it is the woods, it is walking, there's the cell phone service here is horrible, so people are talking to each other. So talk to folks and I want them to really tactically understand this place we are at right now.
I'll say that the children on Circuit, and I don't fool Circuit after a certain point in time because the children are there, right? But I loved the joy and the freedom, and I noticed there's only one other place in this country where I've seen it quite like that, and it was in Nicodemus, Kansas, which is the oldest and only remaining Black settlement west of the Mississippi. when they have their reunion weekend for the descendants of that town. But it's in the western Kansas prairie. Part of the reason those children are free is because it ain't nowhere to go. They're running down the street and they're all cousins, right? But there's something different here. I think about like our children deserve safety. They deserve to be able to explore. And this is a space where you can drop your child off on circuit and they can meet other teenagers their same age, or the 8-year-olds can ride their bikes together. And there is an unspoken agreement that everybody's looking out for them and they're safe here. And it's true. And everybody's also looking out for each other and we're all safe here. And I think that is more than like, no shade to the designers that are lifting up the aesthetic, right? Because that's a separate conversation. I think the commercialism and capitalism that has come to the island is a separate thing from what it is, which is a space for us to be in community with each other, thinking exclusively about ourselves.
Yeah. I really love what you're saying about both safety and the fact that creative designers, people want to capture that. And that's just a testament to what's happening here that's special, is because generally, that comes after it follows culture, which is started more indigenous to here. And I love calling it Noepe, which is the land of waters. What is the?
Yeah, I think it
something
is.
like
I think it is.
something that. But the fact that it is surrounded by water, that you can only get here by a ferry or a little tiny plane. It is not easy to get here. And we took a lot of effort. I have a friend who took 17 hours to get here from a couple stops. But once you get here, that sense of belonging and safety, and you see groups of young people running around. And I remember being struck a few years back at night. They're out till like late at night, and there was just a mixed group of kids, like of different diverse races, and a police officer standing there kind of like hanging with each other and like playing around. And it was just like, oh, what is that? What is this actual peace officer and community service officer? Like, it was a different view of that because of something about having that parameter and that container, but also that agreement that if you're coming here, this is the agreement.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I was out a little bit late last night, maybe about 1 o'clock in the morning or something of the nature. What was interesting was a lot of kids were on the street, and I heard some kids talking. On the beach, there are chess boards lined up and down, and a couple of kids were talking to their parents and like, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to stay here and play chess with my friends outside at 2 o'clock in the morning." And so there's something really special about this. And one of the things I'm thinking about is, Jocelyn, you said public lands help you rethink your connection as a citizen.
Yes.
We talked about it here, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what does that mean when you talk about the importance of public lands and your role as a citizen, and what does that mean?
Yeah. I mean, so before I worked in public land, I, like many other Black folks, interacted with this country feeling like a second-class citizen. You're acutely aware of the talk when you're getting ready to drive, and make sure when you go to the store that you get a receipt, and just how do you interact with the built environment in a safe way, right? Not necessarily fearful, but just being very safe. And so my interactions with police and law enforcement and structure and authority was very much dictated by that. And then I started working in public land. And when you're a park ranger and there's a law enforcement ranger that's assigned to you, you're not a potential threat, you're a colleague, right? And that's what began to shift my interaction. And then also, once I began to engage more in public land as a visitor, as a visitor, as a patron, when you're on the trail, you're just on the trail. You're not asking, what do you do on the trail? You're asking, does that switchback look as crazy as I think it is? I'll never forget, a couple years ago, I went hiking in Tennessee. There's a mountain called LeConte in the Great Smoky Mountains. and I went with a friend. We were amateurs. We did not know what we were doing. It was a terrible choice. We started late. We started late. We had the wrong shoes. It was all bad. We get to the top of the mountain. It's me and another African American millennial, and we get to the top, and some boomer white folks from South Carolina were there. I had blisters. We were in bad shape. Like, it was just bad. And we were getting up to the top of the mountain at like 4. And they were staying at the cabins up there. And they're like, "Are you staying up here?" We're like, "No, we have to hike back." This woman turned into a mom. Just a mom. Now, I'm 1,000% we did not vote the same way in the last presidential election, right? But she was just a mom, like, "Oh my gosh, you have to get down to the bottom of the mountain. Please call me when you get down to the bottom of the mountain." And I had gone into the store at the top to switch my socks because I had blisters. And she saw that I had blisters, and she called her husband. I don't remember what his name was, bless that man. And she's like, "He has some moleskins." This older white man, who in any other context I probably would never meet, treated my blisters on my feet. Like he didn't just give them to me. He said, "Let me take a look at that," and placed them on me to make sure that they were just right. There's a care and a connectedness that I've been afforded through the land that I've not experienced through anything else, because we both are fascinated, and I had this we're both fascinated by whatever that natural wildlife is, whatever that natural plant life is. We're also, if it's steep, we're all breathing hard together, and we all care for each other, and it's changed my entire relationship to this country.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That is. I want to talk about your space, Bridget. I got to spend some time at Blackbird House in California. Beautiful, amazing space, both functional and mindful. It helps us connect in a different way, and your thoughtfulness around the sustainability, around the intentionality, around not just how it looks, but how it feels is incredible. How has that intentionality around design and that space, why is it so important, and how have you made that place feel and look and be so different?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. And it's funny because it is in relationship with land. Obviously, all these buildings, and you're in city. And I was very intentional about where to put this. For me, going on the hike up at West Ridge near us, all of those are times to just go and be in nature and forest bathe, and but then coming in our day-to-day work and community, and what does it look like? I worked at a design studio, which was my own space, and found that we really wanted to be in community. And at one point, I learned that I'm an interior designer as well. And one of the statistics that struck me decades ago was that less than 3% of interior designers in the US are Black.
Wow.
And it's such a great career. I love it. It's like my wheelhouse. I feel so at home, but I also gather community. And what does that look like if there is a space that's centered on us? And so the intentionality is seriously my auntie's house. It's the honor of my grandmother. I was raised in Berkeley, California, which has a lot of vibe like here. Vineyard Haven feels a lot like Berkeley, so I landed here. But the idea of the built environment, we spend a giant percentage of our time in the built environment. So if we're going to do that, where does sunlight come in? What do you walk outside to? Is there a connection? Luckily in California, you can have 300 days of indoor-outdoor life, right? So if I'm going to contain myself inside, which is, shelter and really important, I want to be gathered around intentional community. And essentially, it's a social impact membership space. It's people who want to make the world better. We're about 80% women of color, 20% men and non-women of color. And it's not by design, like there's no quota. It's just what keeps happening over the last 6 years. And the space, I had someone walk in who I had known through the campaign trails and who was wonderful and wasn't able to make it in before. She came in last week and she said all the things that was intended to be in the space, she repeated them. She said, I walked in and my shoulders dropped. I felt seen. I felt at home. I felt familiar. And I was emotional about it because it wasn't her, it was us. It was that idea of it's an industrial chic, it's a beautiful space, but I put in textiles and textures and layers and patterns, and it's bohemian-ish, but it's very in every choice. The velvets, no one notices this, but there's 3 different shades of this mauve, cranberry, and that's this nature. In nature, no green is just one green.
Yeah.
So the intention of, one of my favorite parts, when you walk in this space, the podcast studio is in the middle.
Yeah.
And we're a storytelling studio, and I hearken that the podcast studio is the modern version of the fires around which stories were told, and where civilization told, us how to move forward, and ancestors, and talked about the future. So I put that there, and no one knows that that's why it's there, but you see that and you feel drawn, and everyone's like, ooh, is that a podcast studio? It's glass, like it's really pretty. But it is our fire. It's that burning conversation that through story, we realize we're okay. We realize we're not alone. We move forward. We get our work done. What we aspire to is possible because we shared
Yes.
a story of someone who did it.
Yes.
And so for me, that is a grounding point. And then the rest of it, you walk around and it's just the idea that what you put into space, that energy and intention is felt whether you say it or not. And that's one of the things that's been really satisfying about having this space.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking that.
No problem. And here's the deal. If you're in California, if you're going to get to California, you need to get to this space and see this space and interact and just feel it, because it is one of those places. And I loved how you described it being the podcast studio being the campfire. I was at one of the Nature Conservancy's properties in Tanzania, and we're doing some restoration work of native grasses in Arusha, and I was sitting around a campfire with Maasai men, and they had, I wasn't eating meat at the time because I was fasting, but they had slaughtered a goat, and we're sitting around this campfire and we're telling stories, and they have this goat that they're sitting up and they're passing around the goat, and they're like, well, you got to get your knife, and I pull out my little pocket knife to try to cut me a piece, and they pull out these machetes. But the thing is that they're sitting around us for hours and telling stories, and I tell a story, and they want to understand practically where does this fable lead to, and it's like there's no end on it. And they're like, well, why did the eagle not land on? It's like, that's not the point. But the idea of just being around the fire, being and listening, because it connects us in so many ways. I'm going to talk another thing about something I'm really proud of with the Nature Conservancy, and that's a program that my team has started called the Oak Tree Fellowship.
I love them.
They're so good.
So our Oak Tree Fellows, if you don't know, and if you want to help support these programs, I'm going to tell you about them. The Oak Tree Fellows are individuals who are recent graduates from universities with a focus on women universities, HBCUs, HSIs, tribal colleges and universities, and they have a 2-year rotation throughout our global organization where they get to understand how conservation works. They are doing significant projects, and they're adding value to the organization so they can be leaders. And each of these women have you just finished
Hosting.
an Oak Tree Fellow as part of their externship. And I would love for you all, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about how that program went, and just let folks know why it's such a great
Can they
program.
move to LA?
No, I really-
They were so good.
It was so good. I'm very sad that it's over.
It was amazing. I think the intentionality, they went through already 12 months of training.
Right.
And so it wasn't like getting an intern who's like, I don't know, I've never been in the workforce. It was really intentional about what the project would be, how we did it together, how it would bring value to the organization. And we were very thoughtful, like, how does this fellow take it into their next journey? And it culminated in capoeira on a terrace,
Yeah.
but talking about the history. And what was exciting is because we're a community space. So how do you think about, and we're talking about this conversation of what does community have to do with conservation and greener future?
Right.
Well, it's everything.
Right.
Because it's our people, it's the experiences we have with them, and the safe spaces that we get to
Yes.
have these in. So all of that culminated in this very intentional, beautiful journey with this young person that you're so excited for them. We're now connected. And what do you need? How do you
Right.
go forward? So it's beautiful that you all are doing it. I think it's one of the most successful that I've seen in terms of meeting a fellow from that program. And I've been a fellow as an adult, and it's great. It's really great. I'm sure you want to add something.
I love. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Elise.
Yeah, they were fantastic. For me, I am. It's the same thing. Where
You had a Morehouse man, right?
I had a Morehouse man, and I'm a Fiskite and a Bison, so I have a healthy respect for Morehouse. And for me, with all young professional development, with all internship, I really live by this model that Frederick Douglass said. He said it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Wow.
Right? And of course, they're not children; they're young adults. But it's easier to build a young professional that sees themselves as having impact, that sees themselves as having something to offer, versus smushing somebody down. You know, so many of us have these traumas early in our careers where somebody has said, I had to hustle to get mine, you get it.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to thinking about Baldwin, your crown has already been bought and paid for. All you got to do is wear it upon your head, right? So I had the privilege and the honor of working with Kyle. He was my research assistant, and where yours culminated in Capoeira, mine culminated in the Association of African American Museums Conference, where we thought about Black institution building. These Black cultural institutions from across the country gather every year at AAAM, and I love that his spirit, because I was able to just say, go, you talk to this person, you talk to that person, because of course there's what he's doing this summer. But I'm also thinking about, here's at least a 40-year career. So who is he going to be in 10 years? How can we put him in position to see things so that in 5, 10, 15 years, he builds something of his own? And I kept telling him, maybe toward the end of my career, you might hire me. So I'm being good to you with a vested interest, just so we're clear. Because I think sometimes when we're on the climb ourselves, when we're in a moment ourselves, we kind of forget them tables can turn real quick. And so we have to invest in that next generation to make sure that they can keep the fires burning, keep it going. So it's really great.
Yeah.
And he's sharp. And he has my same birthday.
Oh,
He has my exact same birthday. So I'll see him later this month when we celebrate, for sure.
That is. Speaking of birthdays, you just had one, right? And you look 25 years old. Just so you know. Happy birthday.
Oh, I am an introvert. So yes, I did.
Okay.
Congratulations.
I'm like one of those. I don't really do birthdays on the internet's person. So funny, but it's fine. I'm totally embarrassed.
Happy birthday.
It's real. Thank you.
So we're gonna talk about food.
Yes.
Oh,
I was at a dinner yesterday, and the chef JJ, he has multiple restaurants around. It was a time impact dinner, and he served this food. Oh my gosh! And it was like this jerk fish that he served, and fresh greens, and all these things. Actually, the fish came from the ocean here. The greens were local.
I heard about this food.
It was so good. It was so
delicious.
good. Yeah, I'll see you.
so you sharing?
Just like
Are you sharing?
Here's what I want to know.
Okay. I was like, is there a door gonna open and Chef JJ walks in?
Jay, come in. So tell me about food, not only food in your life, but food as a connection to history, food as a privilege, and food as a weapon as we start to talk about food apartheid
Yeah.
and what that means and the privilege that some people have when it comes to food and other people don't have.
So just a couple of notes about food. About 13.5% of U.S. households were food insecure at some time during 2023. There are and that's about 18 million people. 5.1%, or about 6.8 million people of U.S. households, had very low food security. There are 47.5 million people in food insecure houses. 12.2 million adults who lived in households with very little food security. 7.2 million children
Wow.
lived in food insecure households. And then there's two more I'm gonna share. There are approximately 24 million Americans that live in areas with limited access to affordable, healthy food, and we call that. Some people call it food deserts.
Yeah.
But it's food apartheid because deserts are a naturally occurring phenomenon, and this is not. This is intentional. This is planned. Somebody did this. White neighborhoods have, on average, 4 times as many supermarkets as predominantly Black communities, right? That, and I wanted to make sure I got all those stats right, because it is a man-made creation in terms of the problem, then that solution can be man-made as well.
Wow.
It doesn't have to stay that way. And I'm really focusing on food security because with land, public land isn't just about recreation. That's one sliver of it. But in my work, we deal with conservation. We also deal with history and culture, but we also deal with food. All across this country, there are folks who are leveraging public and private land, but a lot of public land to solve the challenges related to food apartheid. They are literally from teeny tiny, there's a farm I know in California that's on 0.22 acres, like small to large-scale operations. I got some folks in D.C. at Dreaming Out Loud that are about to open a supermarket that started in an acre of a public-private partnership. They're moving tons of food. Actually, in October, I'll be with the Black Urban Growers Conference in Detroit. Shameless plug there, because there are hundreds of people around the country that are thinking about this, and we're tapping into that ecosystem at Trust for Public Land. That's existing. Folks have those solutions. They're working on them independently of us. My intention in us tapping into them is how do we help be a tide that lifts all boats? Folks know what we need. Our folks know what we need. They do not need, I'm thinking of something else Frederick Douglass says, but I don't want to butcher the quote, but we don't need you to give us handouts, right? If you just stay out of our way, don't harm us, and maybe give us some resources that we need, we can build it for ourselves. And that's what's happening. So we can solve this. It doesn't have to be like this, and we don't have to be content in it, you know?
I was going to talk about gumbo.
But no, but I do think it is important.
No, I do.
I do think that because
But that's beautiful. Yeah.
we have to do it at scale,
Yes.
because then it goes to your home.
Yes.
So please tell us about this
and
gumbo.
it's tied in. It is absolutely tied in. And I never thought of public-private partnership for food insecurity or apartheid,
Right.
as you said. One of my hermanas, she did one People's Night Market in San Antonio that she started herself, and all the food has to be given away. So she would get all those baskets, and she changed this neighborhood that was rough. Valeria, she's now the head of the Santa Monica. She manages the Saturday Santa Monica market, but she rolled her sleeves up, no resources,
Love it.
just started doing it and got into going to council. There's a lot of things that individuals can do because this was her passion, and she did it, and she just like made it happen. And it became this big market. They ran for a decade before she moved to LA. That is so important to think of what you said about the neighborhood. My kids ran for the LA Jets in South LA. I would go to the grocery stores there, between the grocery stores in Santa Monica, and all of the fruit sections were, I took photos because you just see all this produce in Santa Monica, and then you go there and it was Jell-O, things put into cups that was mixed up, like it was
Like fruit
weird.
cocktail?
Fruit cocktail. Nothing wrong with coleslaw, but I would love to just get the cabbage
Right.
and go make some. But it wasn't there, and there was something striking because my grandmother went to the grocery store and cooked for nothing. Like she made,
Right.
and that's where the gumbo tied in.
Yeah.
Gumbo was actually a reaction to not having anything. It was, let me take all the scraps that you give me and make something great out of it. Let me take the dry the shrimp and do all those things. And dried shrimp is her secret addition to it. That is, she told me I could share with everybody.
Okay.
So I'm not. She's one of those generous. Like I remember. Anyway, my grandmother's gumbo I started making in 1989 because I was like, I want to make this gumbo. She was like my mom. I mean, she's not that much older than me because of teen parenting things that my parents did. Anyway, all that to say that it was an adventure. It was Everybody
that.
came in. We all had to help mix the roux. We knew she was making it. The big pot was out. The skillet. We're gonna talk about that lady later. But the skillet that
Yes, we
her
will.
her cast iron that had no handles on it yet was being, so we all had to take turns. It was the best gumbo I've ever had because it's connected in the flavors, and it's still pretty good. Like, I will take that on any contest and feel very proud of it. It will be up in the top three.
Did you bring any?
I could make some, but that would take all day.
Y'all want some gumbo?
The gumbo relates to that
Yeah.
because it was, what do we have? She made hoghead cheese, which is
Yep.
not something I eat or want to eat, but that was all from just taking scraps and making
Yeah.
gourmet out of it. So
Yeah.
that's why
Ain't that
gumbo.
our culture?
It is.
Ain't that our culture?
And it's
Y'all took music
delicious.
out of school. That's fine.
Okay,
we
no
don't have no
problem.
instruments. We'll just make hip hop.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
That's
cool. Make it.
Yeah.
But that idea of what if we actually resourced the genius? What if we
There you go.
actually created space where we could go and see other badass entrepreneurs doing their thing
There
and go,
you go.
oh, I see you. Oh,
There you
you're
go.
doing that. And what we bring every single time is we bring something to the table.
Absolutely.
And we take some from the table. It is the only place that I've been where 90% of the people who come in are like, what can I leave here? What can I bring
There you
here?
go.
And that to me is like the whole thing. It's a mutual benefit society. So this germ, this seed was planted, these things happen, and it should always become bigger than us. Bigger, whoever founds it, whoever, like what land, it should become bigger than us.
For sure, for sure.
And so that relates to the food, relates to the generosity of spirit that my grandmother, my late grandmother, who I love, put into her gumbo, invited everybody over and fed the whole street.
But that's part of culture, our culture, right? This idea that I love the way you say food is a journey, it's an adventure. I remember my grandma in the back of the
Yeah, I got it. I was gonna let it rock. Keep going.
No, that's your grandma.
in the backyard, neighbors' backyards, picking poke to make poke salad, poke greens.
Oh, wow.
People and
Poke
they
weed.
call them weed now, but they
Yeah.
used it to make salad and greens back then. I grew up in Kentucky, and we definitely had some country oysters, chitlins.
Oh, chitlins.
Kentucky oysters. Yes, and y'all know y'all want some as well. I know y'all eat them. Just don't cook them in my house, right? But you also look at things, this idea of big food being an adventure. I love cooking, and one of the things I love cooking is a long brisket, 24 hours, slow, with, and just kind of letting that smoke get in there, letting the love get in, and then when you pull it out and unwrap it and slice it, it's just an adventure, like gumbo.
Yeah.
And I'm interested, you didn't say for you, what is that nostalgic food for you that brings you back?
It's mac and cheese.
Oh.
It's my grandmother's mac and cheese.
Okay.
Because you start with a roux.
Yeah.
You start with a roux.
Start with
A
a
good
roux.
mac
A
and
good
cheese
mac and cheese
does.
start with a roux. I don't believe in Velveeta. I don't think American cheese should exist. Fight me.
We're on
It's
the
cheddar.
same-
It's
Well,
Colby.
yeah.
It's I don't believe and actually thinking about the genius of our people, mac and cheese is created by a black man. Did y'all know that? Mac and cheese comes from is it Hemmings? It's one of the James. I could not remember his first name. Oh yeah, you know, James Hemmings. He was enslaved by Thomas Jefferson, and when if you know Thomas Jefferson's story, there's a point where he goes to France and he takes James with him, and James studies French cuisine and comes back and makes up mac and cheese.
Get out of here.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
So
you,
it's not just
James.
us being degenerate, eating noodles and cheese. No, that's culture.
That's
big
wonderful.
culture. Yeah.
Oh, we gotta have a doctor on every panel so
We
we can
do
get
know,
some
we-
history. This
Stats.
is gems, y'all. You need to take some notes.
There you
Okay, thank you for that.
So
That's
this is the
beautiful.
serious question that y'all know we're gonna get to.
Oh yeah.
This is a question where you will get put out of someone's house if you don't do it right. And that is cast iron, which is a staple in my house. My grandma had cast iron, hundreds of cast iron spots, and I have pots and pans that are 200 years old that my grandma has given to me that I cherish. I cherish the smell of them. I know that what's in them is what she put in them. So the question is, cast iron, washing them. Do you use soap or not?
The virtual audience cannot see
What
the
happened?
collective
Just
reaction. Soap. I don't. So I was right. My actual mother, who gave me life, is here, and I was not raised to use soap on my cast iron.
Because you and I
However,
got in this
yes,
conversation.
because I went to the cast iron museum in East Tennessee, and it was equal 50-50 that some people use soap and some people didn't use soap, and I was shocked. I don't know about that soap business.
Yeah.
But I do think now, I mean, I live in the 21st century. I do think maybe a teach might be okay. You cannot have an abrasive and it can't wash off the seasoning. But maybe.
The rules were very clear that no soap.
Coarse salt.
It layers. It's just like you don't want to do anything to break up that
The seasoning.
beautiful. The seasoning is just like you said, years, decades, 100 years of
Yeah.
layering that creates this nonstick thing that they keep trying to use chemicals to make.
Yeah.
But it's like healthy and it does flavor things. And also don't cook tomatoes in there because that breaks it up. So it's like if you use the right things
Yep.
and
Yeah.
cook it for the right ingredients, like fried rice or rice and eggs. Did y'all do rice and eggs?
We did do rice.
Rice and eggs, yeah. If you use it for the right things, it like, but we were not supposed to. In fact, friends went to a person's house and
I
washed.
want to get so specific.
Not
regarding
me. I
friends.
wasn't here. I'm gonna just say friends because if I name a friend and then they're like, "You busted me out on LinkedIn Live,"
But it's a friend you really, really love a lot, right?
it wasn't my house. They went to the dude's house and they put it in the dishwasher.
That happened to me recently. No, that happened to me recently.
Yes.
Somebody put my cast iron in
pearls.
there.
Everyone's like,
Clutch
"What?"
my pearls.
Who puts? So anyway, needless to say, they were kicked out and they will never be guests again.
Yeah, I had
To that particular house of that friend.
I had that
was
happen
not.
to me recently, and I reached a new level of my adulting journey because I had to re-season on my cast iron. I was very proud of it. I took a picture of it.
But it's hard to do, isn't it? To get it right.
Yes. But if you buy, I mean, this is we saw off topic from what we're supposed to be talking about, I guess. But but I will say the Lodge people have erasers that you can buy that makes it a lot easier to get the rust out. From the people who make the cast
Well, there's
iron.
a lot of brands now, and some brands are like I'm not going to advertise any brands, but we polish it. We have it have this little. There's so much. I got
Yeah.
confused trying to get. I was trying to get a griddle because
Yeah.
anyway.
Let's talk about this actually.
Yeah. We're here for a very
What we
serious
talking about? We're talking about a
conversation.
greener future.
Okay,
Jay.
we're going to talk about a greener future.
Yes,
So,
but I will
yeah.
say this is the last of the cast iron. One
love
of the
cast iron.
things that I think of as an interior designer is it doesn't green, sustainable doesn't mean you just buy things that disintegrate. It also means heirlooms, building things that can be passed down from generation to
Yes.
generation. So it is in fact vital. I have a record. I have a radio from my grandparents' house that is 150. That thing moves around wherever I go.
Yep.
It was built beautifully. Now I have
Built
to
to
put like a
last.
little Spotify speaker, some other kind of speaker in it. But this idea that we build not fast furniture, not fast clothes, that we think of what we're consuming and how it can pass down is vital. And so that
Yeah.
cast iron plays into that. We're passing this down as long as you don't put it in the dishwasher.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about this, Fast. Because in fact, I'm going to talk about this shirt that I have on.
It's very nice.
Thank you so much. My crew they also clutch their pearls and they're like, "You're going to go on camera with that thing on." But I want to tell you about it. This is actually one of the repurposed where they take fab from India. They took fabric scraps. They used it to
Upcycle.
upcycle and create this shirt. So not only is it a beautiful shirt that is very television camera
friendly.
appropriate.
Let's see. Is it y'all?
No.
Are you like this is because stripes, all these things? Are you going crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about outside. Jocelyn, you and I got to adventure
Yes.
a couple days ago outside.
Yes.
It's an incredible thing. I'm glad I did it. I about died. But you want to tell people about this space we were in, why it's a special space, what it meant. And we're going to talk about how I was just a champ through it as well.
I'm a proud Martha's Vineyard polar bear.
So am I. Polar bear.
I'm a polar bear, which the polar bears in Martha's Vineyard were started in 1946. This is the 79th year. Started with people who had to get up early to swim because they had to work. Black men and women who were here working on the island. And I wish Miss Caroline was here because she could run down the whole history way better than I can. But about 30 years ago, the exercise circle was formed. And every morning from July 4th to Labor Day at 7:30 in the morning down on Inkwell Beach, folks gather.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to interrupt you. Inkwell Beach. You're going to
Inkwell
also talk
Beach.
about Inkwell Beach. I don't know if you know the story of that, so maybe you finish this and then.
Let me not. I'm not an expert on the Inkwell
Okay.
Beach. I just know what it's called, and I watched that movie in the 90s. But they gather on Inkwell Beach, and this morning we actually had a world record. We broke a record the day you were there. It was 2:22 the day you were there. It was 325 polar bears this morning, including, 100 and something newbies, over like 150 newbies or something, which was amazing. But you're doing water aerobics, saluting the sun, having a moment with nature. And my favorite part of polar bears is when we are quiet and we're enjoying the summer. There's so much noise in our lives. And there's something, going back to what you said about the power of the island, you're in the Atlantic Ocean. And for me as a historian, I can't separate, like, the same way we have memory and our cells have memory, the land has memory, the water has memory. The first time I did it, I couldn't separate the fact that we're in the same Atlantic Ocean that our ancestors were trafficked across, I should say. And like, just for us to have the choice, the agency to go and exercise our bodies and to engage in community and leisure and then to be still and to remember them. It's a gift. It's an honor. It's a privilege. And yes, it's cold a little bit
It's freezing cold.
when you start. Now, unfortunately, James had a reaction. I have not seen anybody else.
What?
Everybody
Can you
else I
reenact
know
it for us?
the whole time. The whole time. Most people, it's cold when you start, but after you get in, he never warmed up.
You don't have
Like,
any
he
body
never
fat.
warmed
That's
up.
really
He
it.
doesn't have body fat, probably.
Yeah, right.
No,
and he never
that's-
warmed up.
When you
But
have body fat, it's really.
But no, I highly encourage, if you're on this island between July 4th and Labor Day, come be a polar bear. It's great.
And you can also watch, which I have done, and it is beautiful. I went to my ankles, and I was happy to watch. And they formed a circle. It was
Yes.
not that many people when I was
Yeah.
there, but it was a beautiful thing,
was.
and I love the
Yeah.
history of that too.
And so we all have an Imani in common,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm going to talk about water with your Imani in a second. But my middle daughter's name is Imani. Your
Last name is Imani.
Imani, and you have,
A younger daughter named Imani.
and your Imani and your spouse are scuba divers.
Yes.
Tell me about that and why they chose that and why that ocean experience, water, is special to your family.
Yeah, from the core of my being, I grew up in California. I've always had a coast. We used to go to the military Alameda Beach, which was a military beach, but it was warm in Northern California. And it was freedom. It was that you just out in nature, you are in awe of this water. My daughter is a water baby, grew up in the water, always loved it. And she went to, she was going to school for marine science, and you have to get certified. So before she wanted to get certified. So she told her dad that he had to go with her, and so he did. And
Those Imanis make dads
yes.
do stuff.
so he did it. And he probably would
think my
have,
dad
but
did
she,
stuff too.
yeah, she has a lot of control over us. So she, and then it's this beautiful thing they share, and they go and you're underwater, and you scuba. So it's snuba. I sit at the top, and I go down and come back
hilarious.
up. It's very funny. There's like a tube up there, but I just don't understand being way down there and not like here. But they love it, and it's this shared experience of being really. It's vulnerable. You're in nature. in this quiet. There's a sound. There's this quiet, and there's these agreements and
Yeah.
codes you do. And talk about humanity. You're in one of the largest body of material on our earth, and you're in there in awe, and you understand where you belong in the planet in that moment. So for them, it's beautiful, and I'm happy they have it, and I am so happy up here snooping. Yeah.
But once you get under that water, though, there's a whole new world, a life, a connection, and it's when we start talking about protecting the planet, it's not just what we see on the surface, but understanding the impact we're having on the oceans, and when we get underneath the oceans, understanding there's a whole different ecology down there, and it is so important that we respect that and we take efforts to protect that, which is one of the founding goals, one of the principles of what we're doing with TNC right now. We're gonna get some questions ready from the audience, but while we're doing that, we're gonna just keep talking till we get some questions in. Raise your hand if you have any. But Bridget, you have a special skill that not many people understand. You're an interior designer, actress, incredible mom, but you also know how to bust the move, right?
Well, I used to.
Okay. Used
He
to?
is teasing because I, in high school, junior high, that's how old I am. They call it middle school now. And there may be a new word that I don't even know. I am proud to say I was a break dancer. Yeah.
It's cool.
And we got booked for shows at the San Francisco Zoo, at Lake Merritt. So if you, 100 and so years ago, saw some kids in red Adidas breakdancing on the side with our own rolled out cardboard,
Love
I
that.
might have been one of those people.
And you were like one of the first women
To
in
flare,
to
yeah.
flare.
Which is a really hard, and also
Can
I
you
was
describe flare too?
flare. You hold your body up by your two hands, and then you start flipping your legs around in this circle. And I think I only did two at a time, but I did two full flares, and I almost surprised myself as
But
well.
I heard you could still do it.
Yeah,
like today.
Yeah.
Like
no,
right
I showed
now.
you how. So why don't you demo it? Yes, right now in this skirt. Here we go. Okay, y'all.
There you go. See? I do have a question here that I have. So as you start to think about your maturing relationship to land, sustainability, and nature, how has it evolved as you've gotten more mature in your understanding connection, and why has it evolved? What's important?
Okay. So it is about since joining the Trust for Public Land, I've had an introduction. My horizons have broadened in understanding land. You were talking about scuba diving, and I was thinking like that's outdoor recreation, right? The outdoor recreation economy is a $1.1 trillion economy in this country. I think there may be only three or four $1 trillion industries in our country, like maybe automotive, maybe tech, but there's not a lot of $1 trillion, and outdoor rec is one. And our folks are doing outdoor rec, they're just not calling it outdoor rec. They're not necessarily hiking, they're going for a walk, they're not necessarily engaging in water sports. They, go playing in the lake, wherever they are, right? And on and on and on. So thinking about the business of nature and how our folks are sometimes inadvertent consumers, but not decision makers at the table is one way. And then I've also thought about the fact that, particularly since we work in public land, every single challenge that I've ever heard a community talk about, I think about every challenge, can be supported we can get closer to the solution through public land. So if you think about education, well, those schoolyards are pretty hot. If we cool the surface temperature of the schoolyards down, sustainable designing. We do the community schoolyards at TP. I'm very proud of my colleagues who do that work. If we cool that surface temperature down, those kids are going to be less exhausted after recess, and you're probably going to see better test scores at the end of the day. Food, we've already talked about the correlation with food. Safety, parks connect to safety.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Housing, parks connect to housing. There's all of these community issues that we have that we're arguing about. We're really there's a connection point in public land, and I would be remiss if I didn't lift up. I have a wonderful colleague named Carrie Simmons. He's done some incredible work called On Common Ground with Trust for Public Land, which basically the central theme of the work is that shared space can lead to shared connections, can lead to shared identity, which ultimately leads to a shared political agenda. There's just output, and that's an oversimplification. Carrie, if I butcher that, don't kill me. But what happens, what we've seen through research, is we can bring folks that are different on age, race, ability, income, nationality. We can bring them together in public land through sustained contact. And whereas there might have been an othering between them and that other person, now they find commonality. And out of that connection and commonality, they can work toward a goal together. So really thinking about how public land is not just a place you play or a National Park Service site you visit, but rather a tool, as in liberation, has been such a mind shift for me.
I love that. And it makes me think of, public land. Thinking of land, thinking of ownership, and we're talking about housing and all of the different things. I'm so interested in public-private partnerships that really explore the connections. And we know this in community, there was a lot of restrictions from being able to own in certain neighborhoods. And there's a lot of connections and ways to shift that mentality, but also in private space, having conversations with people of diverse perspectives, but agreeing that we're going to do this with a civil discourse has also brought people together. I remember having a panel during the pandemic. And this was virtual space. Even it starts with your thought. So in virtual space, we had a maybe 6 people in conversation, and one who had never been in our conversation, who's a big environmentalist. Ed Begley Jr. is pretty known in environmental work. He was an actor, I think, or something. But he, at the end of that conversation, had never been on a panel with this diverse people. Someone from Florida talking about one subject, but all these subjects were on the same. Called me afterwards and was like, I heard so many perspectives. I thought I knew so much. And I heard these perspectives about building near a roadway or a roadway dividing a thing. That he called me and thanked me for forwarding his work for hosting these conversations. Beautiful. So even in your virtual space, but the biggest is that we all, for me, it's like each of us doing one thing towards our passion, our purpose, to connect people more, to understand, to get ourselves connected to nature, which is in our nature, is what excites me about and keeps me wanting to do this kind of work.
We've got a question in the audience.
Okay.
Multiple questions, yes.
So, first of all, I just want to say I'm so excited to so many Black scuba divers. I'm leaving in 2 days to go scuba dive with my dad.
Yes.
So we celebrate 25 years diving together. But I wanted to come back, and I think as you were mentioning with the polar bears, one of the things I think that stops so many of us from engaging in scuba diving, engaging in that time in the water, is this fear that we have sometimes built up culturally around our relationship to the water. And it's so beautiful to see how I have to admit that I'm not a polar bear.
You can join us in the morning.
I would do it with a wetsuit. Maybe. Anyway, but I think, how do you see that operating here on the island? And are there other places in your experience where you see Black folks particularly breaking through and addressing some of our historical and cultural challenges with water and fear and safety?
Yeah, for the folks that aren't, I don't know if they could hear it. The question was, there's a cultural, historic fear that Black folks have, generalizing with water, and how do we start to break through that? And the fact that we talked about water so much during this panel, and would love to get you all's thoughts on it.
That's interesting. I don't know the history of it, but I know, I think about a lot of the trauma here. So I don't know if this is, if we'd say international people of color. I sense, and it's a little emotional to think of how water was used as a weapon against us, and flooded towns and tortured people, and we did lose people, and there's an awe for water. I think there's a very valid reason, and it's what you were talking about in our DNA. There's an ancestral recognition of things, and I love that we're reframing that. And you doing, with your dad, scuba diving, all those reframing are. I think media is responsible. I think there's so many layers of. There's so many layers, and as we share our stories and try things that are outside of our comfort zone and see other people doing it and amplifying that, but I think there's something that just feels like a pain, a national pain
It is.
to it. So I'd love to
No,
hear
it
your
is.
thoughts.
There's definitely some trauma in our DNA. Like epigenetics is not hypothetical. So we do have to start, for those of us who have deep fears of the water, we should call the lady. You know what I mean? We got to call the lady, got to go to the therapist, figure this out, because it's mental, but then there's also some physical challenge. Some of it is, not only have we been traumatized through water, but historically in this country, at least, we've been barred from water, right? We've been restricted from water. When pools were integrated, in some cases, folks would rather pour concrete in them than swim in the same space as us, right? So there's also a reclamation of water in that way. And I have to lift up our friends at Outdoor Afro, Room Map. They have a scholarship. They have a thing, I don't remember the name of the program, but there is a scholarship program that they live for Black children to get swim lessons all over the country, so we can break that stigma, because we love the water. Water, and like if you really think about it, our bodies are 70% water. The earth is 70% water. Water is our mother. Water is our friend. So we got to figure that out and get back to it, because it can save us. It can literally save our lives. And for me, as somebody who's an adult swimmer, like I found that water is a mind regulator, so is the Lord. But also water is important, so we should get in the water and like, I encourage whoever it is, like, break through that fear, because I bet you it's going to be regenerative and restorative.
Go ahead.
This was so beautiful. I'm particularly struck by the conversation around the youth on the bikes and being in Martha's Vineyard, but I'm also mindful of the children who don't have access to this specific space and the role of class and things like that. My husband's a teacher in Boston Public Schools, and he works with students who've been kicked out of 5 to 7 schools. So they have some concerns, but he takes them on a 6-week intervention in the woods, and it's called How to Become a Maroon. And so kind of really connecting them to this, being rebellious, but using nature as part of liberation work. I'm so curious how each of your organizations are envisioning a future of being more inclusive for the kids that don't come to Martha's Vineyard, to include them in this connection to the earth and to nature and liberation work.
Maybe we'll make a quick, quick response.
Oh, man. So in a nutshell, not only my work, I have a colleague, Dr. Ken Lucero, who leads our tribal and indigenous lands work. We have folks that are doing community schoolyards. We're really committed to connecting everyone to the outdoors. We're acutely aware that there are 100 million Americans that don't have access to a park within a 10-minute walking distance of their home, including 28 million children. That's way too many children that can't just get to some land. So, I mean, there's so many nuances. I'm mindful of our time, but we're working, a lot of how our work works is through community partnerships with folks who are embedded in those communities, thinking strategically, listening. Yes. Like, I can't emphasize listening enough, because what folks don't need is somebody from the outside of their community coming to tell them what to do. Folks know what they need. They live there every day. They navigate the hazards of
Exactly.
where they live daily. What they need is for somebody to listen to them and then provide them with access to resources for them to solve their own problems. Or in the case where there's a gap of knowledge where they don't know necessarily how to solve, they need access and connectivity, visibility, so they can dream bigger dreams, so they can figure out how to solve the things themselves. And we're doing that daily.
I love that. I think the only thing I wouldn't really add anything to it except to say that we shouldn't have to come to this oasis for that. And I agree. I hear you. It should be in each neighborhood, and that isn't the reality here. And it here in the U.S. I just am struck by a visit. Quick story. Was in South Africa for 6 months, put my kids in school out there, and years ago, and we took a tour of Soweto. And what Soweto had was not a lot of money, but these kids were excited about education. They were, it's stereotypical. They were playing drums, and they were had a sense of self, but dirt floors. So I'm like, well, what do they have that we're here with, 4 walls and all of this? That sense of community and belonging. And my mother was one of the Ruby Bridge age kids who in Louisiana experienced integration and still to this day is hurt by it. She went from being in an all-black school as a beautiful, in her mind, she was a beautiful, smart, one of the smartest kids in her class, black girl, to being the N-word and to being and so her safety in her community just came from the family unit, but it got broken up in communities. And so as the community is diverse, making those safety of diversity, some of the work that happened in the Rainbow Coalition back in Los Angeles took all these diverse voices to go, yes, in your community, have your silo so you're strong, but then go out and have these integrated conversations, because we're never going to shift as a humanity unless we all start to come and respect our differences, but also see we're at the core. If we're underwater, we're all underwater. To your point,
Correct.
if I got blisters on my feet, I'm just a human. So breaking this up, strengthening ourselves and coming back together is something that I think would start to help create that oasis in each community, which has myriad challenge.
Looks like we got 2 more. Go ahead. Yes.
Thank you so very much for this. It's been very enlightening. But we know it takes resources.
Absolutely.
So if you had unlimited resources, what would be the first project that you would take on?
If I had unlimited resources, what would be the first project? I would endow folks at multiple national organizations, the Association of African American Museums, Association for the Study of African American Life and History, work with the Black Urban Growers Conference, the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. There are configurations of folks that are partnering with networks all across the country, and they need those institutions that are supporting the whole. They need resources. I mean, yes, I could talk about something on the project level, but from my vantage point, I think strategic partnership is what's required for systems level change. Yes, we can open a park. We can do a park opening, ribbon cutting, pretty pictures, and it doesn't matter if 10 years later that community is not empowered for full citizenship, for stewardship, I should say, in that community. So how I'm thinking about those networks where folks can get ongoing community. In reality, like, building and maintaining Black institutions ain't no small challenge, right? Because we're not just dealing with a lack of dollars. We're also dealing with scarcity mentality. We're also dealing with institutionalization. We're internalized racism. And to exorcise that out of us and to be able to build sustainable institutions takes time, work, money, community. And so if I had unlimited resources, I'd be strengthening these collectives. That's what I would do.
What about you?
I would take, of that unlimited resources, I would take 500 million to $1 billion and put that to the hands of Black women entrepreneurs
Absolutely.
across the country to build what they are building now with very little resources, having better ROI than any other demographic, and it would just sustain itself because
Absolutely.
they would give back as they do.
Absolutely.
And that fund would quickly be the $1 trillion within 10 years, no doubt, because right now they're doing it with less than 1% of VC money. And still, my little organization, there's no way we should even like exist, right? And I would take that money, and the 2,000 entrepreneurs I've gotten to meet is just a tip of the iceberg. And not only would I make sure that they all had $1 million seed money or 5 million, whatever that took, I would then make sure they have the resources, the knowledge, the
Yes.
financial acumen,
Yes.
the support, real CFOs, real leaders, real COOs, real people to tell them how business really works,
Yep.
be a gateway, not a gatekeeper, and change the world.
Absolutely.
Love it. So yes, exactly. I'm being asked to also answer this question. So
Yes.
we have a couple of programs that I'm really proud of within my team. One is the Oak Tree Fellowship, because it teaches young people how to be leaders and gives them that experience through mentorship. I would endow a bunch of fellows across the country from institutions that need this, because these young folks have ideas, approaches, and ways of doing things that we couldn't even think about. We need to empower them. And the second thing that we do in my team is a program called the Action Fund, where we ask teams at the local level, what is it you would do if you had small dollars to make a difference in your community? And my team, we're giving out about maybe about a $500,000 a year to teams across the world. And the grants are going maybe $20,000 per team, and they are doing big things with $20,000. And we have to beg for this money every year to say, can we get more money to keep these programs going? And it's about how do we empower other people
Yeah.
to be great.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so I think that's what I heard with each of the things
Yeah.
you said, is how do we empower other people to be great? Oh, he had another question? Yes.
First of all, thank you. I love this. I feel like my spirit's filled already, overflowing from being at Martha's Vineyard. We've been talking a lot about young people, but I also would love to hear your thoughts around how do we take care of our seniors here in these spaces. Being in the sandwich generation of both raising a child, but also taking care of my family, my parents, and also being involved in, for those who know, Altadena, California, over 200 seniors have lost their homes, invested in their property.
That's
And the thoughts of when we're thinking about, oh, let's just build back the home, but the legacy, the idea of legacy, what they poured into that land. And I remember when you were talking about this food security, I was talking to a family member, like, okay, we can get you food delivered to your home. It's like, it's not the same. I used to have a garden. How we used to, have my own plums and all these other fruits and vegetables that they curated.
yeah.
So I'm just curious, are there things that exist to even connect seniors who have lost things, or those who are struggling with dementia, that being more connected to the land in this way would be so much more powerful for them in their health?
So I'm going to ask ask the panel to talk about this, but I want to just take a moderator's moment for a second. I was in New Orleans earlier late last week, with Congressman Troy Carter, and he was having a community meeting focused on the impact of what you're talking about. The idea that land has become, it's not what it's what it used to be, but our connection with it is different, in the sense that after Katrina, we saw a big change in how land was distributed. I was talking to one woman at that community meeting who was talking about she still has lead pipes into her home and can't drink her water or bathe in it. I was talking to another person who was saying they have asbestos in their backyard, so they can't grow safe vegetables. So you look at that, we're on the 20th anniversary of Katrina coming up. We look at the fires. I know that you were personally impacted by the fires that take place. And so I would love to get your thoughts on this, Bridget, because I think it hits you in a different way. So how are you seeing this land? How are you seeing communities stand up to this? And how do you see the seniors being cared for and respected as we think about this?
Yeah, I think it's important for groups like Shared Harvest that Dr. Nana is talking about coming and being stewards of the money that's coming in to do this, to make sure it is distributed. There's already developers coming through. But if you think about seniors, and it's important to me too, because I don't think of seniors, there's different levels of seniors. We have members from early 30s to mid to 70s. And our 70-year-olds are entrepreneurs. They're on their next, like they have so much to offer. So we're talking about the wisdom and our wisdom of our elders being right there in our circle. We would have that in the homes, and that has been divided, and culture has changed, and the whole family doesn't necessarily live on the same block. My family lived on the block. My aunt, me, my uncle, my grandmother, we all somehow bought houses. It was a time we could buy houses. Altadena was owned, this historic that I learned about after the fires. And for me personally, our house is okay, but we're still displaced from our house. We're doing remediation. We were bounced around from place to place. And me with resources and friends, and I stayed in a friend's kid's childhood bedroom with the poster on the wall, like at one point. But that idea that you're not grounded is destabilizing, and it's stressful. So it's not even just like and then there's the memories of that, but the idea of home and the ground that we stand on and what we live, when that is just what happened in Katrina was devastating to communities. So when that happens, how do we that's not our personal work, our direct work, but it's our community and a collective work. I'm advising from a design perspective as a courtesy to multiple people to think about how these programs are implemented. They're going to put all these ADUs on these lots. Well, that's great. Are we thinking of the future house that goes, or will this ADU become someone's house who actually had a home and had a historic craftsman or whatever style it was? That's great temporarily, but are we looking at the whole project? Is this an opportunity now, at thinking of community design, to come in and make sure there's centers for the community to have, for the elders to be? There's so many studies about preschools and elders. Can we reimagine how to rebuild and use this as a lab and a model for sustainability and an opportunity to make sure people, one, have their homes? We don't want our homes just to be a lab, but we could rethink what that parking lot becomes next to the house. And if we were bold enough to take all the money that went into this to do that, if we are, I think we have a shot. So that's what I think about. That's how I can view. And this talents, whatever your talents are, what can you bring to the table to support that?
For sure. And I'll say, just to echo that, like, in our work at Trust for Public Land, all of my colleagues across the country that work in community, we do something called participatory design processes, where there's no community that's a strong community without elders. So you're not listening just to children, you're listening to elders. And in fact, a lot of times when we're in community figuring out how the projects work, the elders are the ones that are telling us the memory, right? And the elders are the ones that are telling us, they tried this in 87, it did not work. You know, hey, you're going to try to do this way, don't do this that way, do this another way.
For real.
You know, I'm thinking about our friends at Newark, in two projects of ours are coming to my mind. In Newark, New Jersey, we have Nat Turner Park, which, and when I came at TPL, I said, oh, this must be for a local civil rights leader, Nathaniel Turner. There's no way. Nah, Nat Turner from Virginia. That is the name of that park in Newark. And that project came about because a community, many of whom are seniors, lobbied for 20 years to get that park online. They fought, they lobbied, they worked, and there's still much more to do with Nat Turner Park. Nat Turner Park is not like Victory Lap success story. We don't turn around. Like, it's open, but it needs continued investment, continued development. And in fact, one of those community elders came on staff at TPL, Donna Kirkland, and she is phenomenal. And now she's an elder inside of our TPL community, and I'm very grateful for her. In fact, my first staff retreat, I saw her, and I thanked her. With tears in my eyes, I thanked her because I knew that the work that she's done that I don't even know is laid the groundwork for me. You know, there's much
There's so
more
much.
there. There's
That's
so
our
much more,
Lisa
but I'm
Gordon
thinking
Kane.
about.
I know time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
our
but I'm
Lisa
thinking about
Gordon
the time.
Kane is the person that you're talking about. That elder she just turned 70. She's like, don't call me no elder. Hi, Lisa. I know you're watching. But she's coming to Martha's Vineyard too to really think about those things. But I will not take. But that elder connection, what you talk about, participatory design, is so exciting and so important. So great.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Bridget. This was so incredible. Last quick question. If people want to support your work, how do they do it?
Check us out at TPL. T is in trust, P is in public, L is in land.org/BHAC, Black History and Culture, TPL.org/BHAC.
Beautiful. Well, if you are a inherent Blackbird that needs space, come to blackbird.house. If you are interested in our mentorship programs or you want to participate in our $1 billion fund that we are starting apparently, then that's blackbirdalliance.org. And do the work in your community, participate.
And from my perspective, if you want to help a young person get some experience, support our Oak Tree Fellowship, or if you want to see some community projects take place, support the Action Fund. If this is your first step into conservation, environment work, you really got a great first step into it, but don't make it your last one. These ladies are phenomenal. Follow them, listen to them, take heed to what they say, and please work to save this planet, because we really only have one. We really only have one. The final thing I'm going to say is that when disasters hit, there are two groups of people for the most part. There are people who are rescued, and there are people who are remembered. And too often, when these disasters happen, our folks are always the ones who are remembered. If things happen, everyone deserves to be rescued. Lend a hand out, help people get better. Until next time, I'll talk to y'all soon. Be safe. Peace.
Peace.